So here's our cell. We have a leak channel, right? Potassium leak channel. We have an ATP pump, which pumps 2 Kn for every 3 Na out, right? And we're using ATP to do so. Then we're going to have 2 voltage gates. We have a sodium voltage gate and then a potassium voltage gate. So you asked about the inactivation gates and activation gates. For potassium, we just have one. But for sodium, we're going to have an inactivation gate, which is on bottom.
So inactivation is inside the cell?
Mm-hmm.
Is that why it's called inactivation?
Yeah.
Is it?
So basically,
because it was inactivated.
well, basically it's going to inactivate the depolarization effect. When you're kind of going through the action potential curve, if this is threshold, here's positive 20. Here's, let's say, threshold's at negative 55. You're going to be depolarizing, and when you depolarize, it's because normally your activation gate's going to be shut at rest. But then when you depolarize, it's going to open up. Those positive ions are coming in, making it more positive. Then when we're ready to go back down, the inactivation gate is going to shut, so we inactivate this depolarization effect. So that's why it's called inactivation. But it's in the cell. So you remember that, in the cell, inactivation. Both ends. Okay, so then we also have negatively charged proteins in here. That is the main reason why your cell is going to rest at negative 70 millivolts. Right? What's inside your cell that's high?
Potassium.
What's low?
Everything else.
Yep. What's high outside?
Everything else.
Mm-hmm. What's everything else?
Besides K.
Like chloride too.
Perfect. Small potassium. Okay, so you were asking what if we increase the calcium outside?
Or like, no, was it decrease? If you decrease the calcium in the extracellular fluid.
Okay, so let's draw this back at rest. So that's our Na, or our sodium voltage gate at rest.
Before depolarization?
Yeah, so this is all right here. That's showing it right here at rest. Okay, so do you know the job of calcium? I like to think of it as calcium.
Oh, it's like a little ligand, right?
Well, it's a voltage, but calcium is just kind of going to sit on top of that gate, making it a little harder for it to open up. So it keeps the gate closed.
Okay.
So if I have, say I decrease calcium, my extracellular fluid, or my ECF, if I take some of these guys off, it's going to be easier for this gate to open, right? If it's open, we're going to be conducting more and more action potentials, right? So that's basically what's going to happen here. So then you might get like muscular twitches, like just twitch and tense up every once in a while, because you're sending so many action potentials because it's so easy for this gate to open up. What if we do the opposite?
What do you mean?
What if we increase calcium in our extracellular fluid? So normally, let's say we have 2. What if we increase? Now we have like 100 of these guys sitting on top of this gate.
Is it still going to open it, the gate?
It's going to be a lot harder because it's kind of weighing it down.
Oh, okay.
So if this gate's harder to open, our action potential is going to be more frequent or less frequent? Less. So then this is when we maybe be more numb. So that's what would happen there. We have local anesthetics, which dentists use, which is kind of the same concept. Local anesthetics when they, put it into your gums. And what do you start getting? Numb? Because local anesthetics are going to hold this gate shut. The gate shut, then no Na comes in, which means no depolarization. It's just going to stay here, which is why we don't feel anything. So that's why that happens. And so another way of saying all this, so you have the word emia. Do you know what that means? That just means in the blood.
Do we need to know that?
Good to know. Medical term.
Yeah.
Medical term. But the reason why is so we say hyper would mean a lot, whereas hypo means a little. So hypercalcemia just means high levels of calcium in the extracellular fluid or in the blood.
Awesome.
So that's how they could refer to it.
Cool.
Cool. What if I increase my K or increase my potassium inside the cell? Is my cell more negative or more positive? Or in other words, am I depolarizing or hyperpolarizing?
Be more positive?
It's not, isn't it not doing anything?
That's if I increase my Na. So if I increase my potassium in here, it's actually going to make the cell more negative. So it's going to go down to like maybe negative 90.
Inside the cell?
And the reason for that, so it's going to inhibit, it's going to be an IPSP,
What's that?
an inhibitory. So
What's
basically
IPSP?
it's harder. Inhibitory
Postsynaptic.
postsynaptic potential, I think.
Wait, so do you have to know that?
I don't think you have to know, or later on. I think he'll talk about next week.
Okay.
But basically what you'll want to know is that you want to know this though, that if you increase your potassium, then it's going to make your cell more negative because you're increasing the concentration gradient. So normally, let's say it kind of trickles out of this big channel. If I increase this, now it has a bigger drive to leave the cell.
Yeah.
So more of these positive ions are leaving, which means the majority of the cell is going to be these negatively charged proteins, making the cell more negative,
Okay.
not more positive.
So
So it'd be a
but then
hyperpolarization.
wouldn't it be like, so if it's more positive, it wants to leave more.
Correct.
So that means like, so to start off an action potential, wouldn't that mean like the Na, like the chemicals bind so that the K plus can move out, like to the voltage gated channel or whatever?
So are you saying?
Like to move out of the cell,
Uh-huh.
what would have to happen?
So it would just be a lot. Now you would same thing. You're still going to need this gate to open to put the positive ions
How
back
would
in.
that one open?
Just a stimulus.
Okay.
So when I touch, action potentials are being sent all the time, constantly. When I touch the table, Na gates are opening, depolarizing, so I know I'm touching something. When I put my hand on a hot stove, when I step on a needle, any stimulus is going to have this happen. Does that make sense?
I'm just like confused with all of them. Like what happens when there's less in or out.
Okay, so let's
I kind of want to write it down.
okay, let's do a scenario. So I go into a movie theater and there's 5 people in there. And I run in, I'm like, everybody get out, quick, leave. There's only 5 people, they're not in a huge rush. You're like, okay, let me get my popcorn. Kind of gonna walk out.
Yeah.
Not super fast, but they still want to leave. That would kind of be if I have a normal level of potassium. But let's say now I increase my potassium, or let's say now I have 50 people in my movie theater, and I run, I'm like, everyone get out. They're probably gonna move a lot quicker, right? Because now it's like, uh-oh, there's 50 of us, I don't know if I'll make it out in time. So there's gonna be a bigger driving force for them to leave. Leaving the movie theater more vacant, or leaving the cell more negative. Does that make a little more sense? Why that would be?
Yeah.
Okay, so what if I decrease my potassium inside the cell?
That means that they're moving out and Na plus is moving in.
Don't worry about Na plus for now.
So like decrease the amount of K plus, that means it would be more positive?
Exactly. So now maybe instead of 5, let's say I only have 1 person in the movie theater, they're gonna move pretty slow, right? Because they're like, I have no competition. I'm just gonna take my sweet old time to get out of the movie theater. Same concept here. It's just more negative or more positive. So Brother Anderson would refer this to if he said, if I decrease the amount of potassium inside my cell, would that be a depolarization or a hyperpolarization effect?
Depolarization.
Because we said it's going to make my cell more positive. because these guys don't want to leave as fast. Therefore, my potassium, it's a positive ion or a cation, it's just going to stay in there. Anytime my cell is more positive, that's depolarization.
Okay. So the cell's more positive, but the proteins are negative.
Right. And these proteins are always inside the cell because they're too big to leave.
So the only difference between, is that mine?
It's not mine.
Okay, I'm just like.
It's your fiance. Got that?
I'm gonna show you guys both. Okay. Okay, so.
It was him, huh?
Okay, so what was the question?
Basically, just if we're decreasing this inside the cell,
That means
it doesn't want to leave as bad, so it's going to stay in here.
and
If it
it's gonna
stays
make
in
the cell
here.
positive.
Right. In other words, depolarization.
Okay, because everything he's been saying is like, if there's K plus inside the cell is negative. Or like,
The cell's still going to be negative. If we just have a normal, let's say we just have normal K plus inside the cell, the cell's still going to measure in at negative 70 millivolts because of these proteins. That's the biggest reason.